Hello, YouTube. Crimea, since 1954, part of Soviet Ukraine, and from the year 2014, under Russia's control, is a cornucopia of ancient mysteries, as well as paranormal phenomena. Well, today I'll tell you about a very cryptic site in the peninsula. In 1998, on the territory of the ancient cave city of Chufut-Kale in Crimea, a joint expedition of the Crimean branch of the Institute of Archaeology of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine and the Onyx Tour Center for Speleotourism began searching for a long-lost siege well, which was supposed to supply water to the fortress city located on top of a rocky plateau. This hydraulic engineering structure was mentioned in historical sources. For example, the French traveler Aubry de la Motte wrote about it at the beginning of the 18th century, pointing out that according to rumors, there was a large siege well in Chufut-Kale, the location of which was already unknown by that time. The first mention of Chufut-Kale dates back to the year 1254. For a long time, it was called Kirk-or in the Crimean Tatar manner, which translates as 40 castles. But there are other accounts and explanations of the name. Located on the top of a plateau with a peak of 580 meters, the fortress city was the center of a small principality that was subordinate to the Crimean Khanate, a Tatar state. At the best of times, the city was inhabited by about 1,000 people, and indeed it must have some kind of water source. That's what the researchers wanted to find, especially since, according to legend, this source was very impressive. At the end of the summer of the year 1998, volunteers and archaeologists started the first exploratory excavations, and unexpectedly, easily, literally on the second day, discovered a circular mine mouth with a diameter of 1.8 meters. However, it was clogged with large pieces of limestone, which over the centuries literally cemented from loam and rainwater. This backwater was cleared by hand, and during the 1998 field season, the well was emptied only 6 meters deep. The following year, it was possible to clear up to 21 meters. And in the year 2000, at the depth of 25 meters, speleologists unexpectedly came across a wide inclined gallery, which went to the surface at the angle of 22 degrees. It was also littered with stones, but in 2001, it was possible to completely clear both the well itself and the inclined gallery. It was a truly unique structure. The shaft of the well descended to the depth of about 50 meters to a source of fresh water at the bottom. But the most striking thing was a 30-meter-high spiral stone staircase that led from the gallery down to the water. The entrance to the well was carried out through a 120-meter stone gallery, pierced into the rock. It started on a mountainside near the city and gradually descended to a stone staircase. Going down to the bottom, you get to a special spacious platform where there is an altar and 2 stone fountains with water. The well was a popular tourist attraction that is worth seeing at least once, providing that it is still open for visits. Lighting was installed in it, and a handrail was installed on the stairs for the safety of visitors. Interestingly, during the excavation of the well, archaeologists discovered a treasure, a jug with gold and silver coins weighing more than 5 kilograms. For some time, it was considered the largest until an even larger treasure was discovered somewhere on the Crimean land. There are some comments I have collected while preparing the report. The mine found, not the well, according to one, is located outside the fortress wall. That is, by definition, not a siege one. One person who went down into it when the excavations were underway states that it has a sacred meaning. It is a temple, some sort of magical. The underground room has a spindly shape. A pierce-light tunnel illuminates the bottom of the cave and a man-made pond. The amount of water in it would not have been able to give the inhabitants, sufficient water, especially during a siege. All this is located on a slope below the fortress wall. The vaults have inscriptions in Latin, ancient Aramaic, and proto-runes. The 60-centimeter high steps are inconvenient for modern humans, and even more so, too high for the Karaites. This is a unique ethnicity in Crimea, later we'll explain, who are credited with the authorship of this project. The height of the inhabitants, obviously those who created, was more than 2 meters. Of the greatest interest is the ridge in the middle of the descent on the right. It is flooded with water on purpose. There's a diagram sketched on the threshold in front of the entrance. If what's carved on the wall is true, it's very interesting. There's a giant hole behind the water castle. Another comment from someone who visited it in the early 2000s. There is a real sensation there. He talked to the guy who founded the treasure. That person was already conducting tours on site. According to the laws of Ukraine at that time, he did not receive a penny for it. The treasure itself was in the museum at that time. The building itself, the well, was no less impressive than the cave itself. Monumental. Another comment. Kirk Or is really translated from the Turkic languages. The meaning is 40 fortresses. It is mistakenly believed that this is the name of the later Tatar fortress. In fact, between the first highest and the second ridges of the Crimean mountains, there are 3 in total. There were indeed about 40 fortresses, most often towers, which were the centers of settlements of the remnants of people who had ever lived in the Crimea. Each fortress or group of fortresses was inhabited by separate ethnicities: Goths, Alans, Avars, Greeks, Tauridians, Scythians, etc. Fragments of once mightier people who left Crimea for various reasons. It was the inaccessibility of these fortresses and the poverty of their inhabitants that allowed them to exist for so long, according to him. Chufut Kale, for example, was the center of the Karaites, Karaim is the Russian, who the claim is are descendants of the Khazars. But there was also a claim that I saw that the Byzantium engineers built the well. Well, mystery remains, and perhaps more excavations would bring clarity and we could find out what's behind the wall, but who knows what the Russians would do or if there are any plans for future archaeological projects at the site. Now, for some established history, and Crimea is really a fascinating place with mix of cultures and ancient and quite mysterious history. I would say that goes back tens of thousands of years. And I bring you some episodes in my other videos too. But let's look at this place. The Middle Ages were usually associated with Western Europe. There was the Inquisition, and before there was the Knights, and so forth. However, the historical period extended to other parts of the planet. Crimea is no exception. it also had its own Middle Ages. It was then that the fortress of Chifut-Kaleh was built, which has survived to this day. The city is located on a small plateau of Burunchak and is surrounded by deep gorges. The natural landscape and fortress walls ensured the safety of the settlement. It was very difficult to get there. The only way was a mountain trail that connected the inhabitants to the rest of the world. The first inhabitants of the caves were the Alans, a powerful Sarmatian tribe and allies of Byzantium, who settled in the mountainous Crimea. The settlement in these places has been mentioned in written sources since the 13th century. The fortress on the impregnable mountain was known by the Turkic name Kirk-Or. In 1299, the hordes of the Tatar Emir Nogai raided the peninsula along with other cities. Kirk-Or was ravaged. The Tatars stayed in the city for a long period, deploying a military detachment there. A new stage in the life of the city began in the 14th century when the Karaim, settled on the eastern side of the fortifications, and they erected a second row of fortress walls. Under their rule, Kirk-Or became a major trade and craft center, and from the middle of the 15th to the beginning of the 16th century, Kirk-Or became the first residence of the Crimean Khans, you can call them princes, and was called Kirk-Er, Chifut-Kaleh. The ancient settlement is located on the outskirts of Bakhchisarai. Translated from the Crimean Tatar language, its name translates as Jewish fortress. The fact is that Karaites lived in these places. They are people related to Crimean Tatars, but they profess Karaism, a religion similar to Judaism. The Karaites themselves call the city by another name, Sela Yehudim, Rock of the Jews. However, there's a hypothesis that the name has a purely Turkic origin. Among these peoples, Juft-Kaleh means double fortress. The settlement with the strange name Kirk-Er appeared on this place around the 6th century. In those days, it was inhabited by the Alans. Then it was captured by the Kipchak, nomadic people from the steppes. The Karaites became the next owners. Under their rule, the city even served as the residence of the first Khan of the independent Crimean Khanate, or the state. Coins were minted outside the fortress walls. It was during this period that the Kirk-Er was renamed Chifut-Kaleh. Now, at the end of the 19th century, for some reason, all the inhabitants left the city. We've seen it with other civilizations, by the way, throughout the world. Sudden departure. Now, most of the buildings today, they're in ruins. So, by the end of the 19th century, after the Karaites left these places, Chifut-Kaleh was deserted. Even upon external inspection, it becomes clear that Chifut-Kaleh is not a simple city, but a cave city. In addition to the traditional buildings, there are many rooms cut directly into the rocks. Since the city was built on the edge of a 50-meter cliff, the caves were cut down into several floors. There are 32 man-made caves in total. The entrance holes in the rocks resemble the empty eye sockets in turtles. It's also mystical. The city is surrounded by a defensive wall about 5 meters high. You can get inside through the preserved Kuchuk Kapu gate. They are made of oak covered with iron. Medieval cities were usually round or oval in shape. In contrast, Chifut-Kaleh is strongly elongated along a rocky ledge. The Kanaska Street starts from the gate, which turns into the main street. Buildings resembling temples can be seen behind the gate on the right side. There are the small and cathedral canasas, the prayer houses of the Karaites, built about 700 years ago. A mikvah tank for ablution before the service has been preserved near the cathedral. Church, a little further away, there are the ruins of a mosque built in 1346. Behind it is the mausoleum of Janike Hanim. This is an example of Seljuk architecture of the 15th century. Everything there breathes of antiquity. Near the southern fortress wall, there are entrances to the caves, Bath, Hamam Koba, and Mastik Sakis Koba. This is followed by the large and small moats, which divide the fortress into two parts. This was done for safety, similar to the hulls of modern ships, separated by partitions. There's a well-preserved prison building behind the moats. It had two underground floors cut right out of the rock. The prisoners were kept in these stone sacks. It is also worth paying attention to the TQ siege well, which is a unique engineering structure. Since there was no water at the top of the cliff to extract it, a deep vertical well was built outside the fortress wall. A man-high sloping gallery with steps was pierced from the fortress to it. It was connected to the well at the depth of 25 meters. Below, to the depth of 30 meters, where there was water, there was a spiral staircase. This well was used only during the siege. The ancient Karaite cemetery of Batati Mes is located half a kilometer from the fortress. It is located in a valley with the biblical name of Jehoshaphat. There is a road to the cemetery in the rocks. Crimea is a crossroads of the world roots and a real Babylon. Therefore, it is not surprising that the Orthodox Christian Holy Dormition Cave Monastery is located next to the Karaite city. Tourists visited it climbing to Chefut Kaleh. It is known that already in the 17th century, Chefut Kaleh was an arid place. Water from a spring located in the valley was brought there in leather skins loaded on horses and donkeys. An important aid was rainwater, which was collected in cisterns and pipes. A drainage well has also been preserved there, located in the old town in front of the gates of the middle defensive wall. The oldest hydraulic engineering structure was located in the area of the southern gate below the wall of Punjare Isar. This is TQ. Unfortunately, the clearing of its filling was carried out by speleologists, cave explorers, practically without supervision of archaeologists, as a result of which most of the historical information was irretrievably lost. Who knows what else was lost? The well consists of an inclined gallery, a vertical shaft, and a number of other structures. In addition to the historical monument, Chefut Kaleh is also interesting as a unique natural site where architecture has merged with man-made cave labyrinths. The plateau, which is reached by a winding road, offers stunning views of the nature of Crimea. This is what I wanted to let you know today. I have not been to Crimea in, I believe, 55 years now, but I did spend time, especially in the city of Yevpatoria, which has its own interesting subterranean history, which I mentioned in some other videos. And there is more about Crimea that I want to bring to your attention, and I will do so. We don't know how the politics will play out and what country will control it in the future, but the past remains, and hopefully it's undisturbed. I want to thank you for your attention to my videos. If you can support the research, please do so. In the description, you find into this video, and please subscribe to my channel. Please like my videos.